We're here for another one from the XRP Live event in Vegas. And of course, this is going to be a good one because I've got my friend Abs coming in from Good Evening Crypto. How are you, man?
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, listen, this has been fun. 2 days here, nonstop action on stage. You look at all the things that happened yesterday. What was your favorite?
I thought Brad was a superstar yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that I loved was David Schwartz taking the time to speak with everybody off stage.
Did you see the clip? Did you guys do that?
Yeah, that was my fridge. That was Johnny Crypto who asked him that question.
Fantastic.
And I loved how we teed it up with the Charles Hoskinson criticism and then worked into the Clarity Act, because what David said that was actually very telling was, yeah, the current state of the Clarity Act does give Ripple and the current projects that have been given that commodity status a big free pass compared to everything else that's at its inception right now. But he said that the industry needs it. And he said we're never gonna get a perfect bill, but the fact that we're right at the finish line, both sides are contentious, it looks like it's going to get done. And I thought that was pretty powerful for someone like David to say.
Well, and you saw the standing O, David Schwartz gets here at this event. But the interesting point that I think was made was built around what was happening on Clarity. And we talked about this really quite at length, but I think it's important to really understand this is not necessarily a necessity for Ripple to kind of move forward. The real question is, what is going to be their roadmap going forward if it doesn't? What do you think would be their next step?
I think Ripple's going to continue doing what they're doing, acquiring real companies, putting those companies on blockchain products, and eventually they're going to migrate to products like RLUSD and the XRP Ledger. The biggest difference between Ripple and every other blockchain product in the space, in my opinion, is Ripple. It is the fact that Ripple has a $40 billion treasury, an $11 billion balance sheet, and they're going to go out and acquire companies that create real demand that's sustainable. You don't see any other projects doing that, and as much as I love to play Charles Hoskinson on my show, it's very entertaining, I think his criticism is fairly unwarranted. If you look at what's happening on the Cardano network as opposed to what Ripple's building, they're in totally different classes. It's like comparing Apple or Amazon to Friendly's or an ice cream shop almost.
Yeah. I had Charles on last week. It was interesting. I pushed back a little bit when he was talking about Ripple and kind of the strategy behind it. And I said, listen, the flywheel effect, to your point, is that when Ripple does make a sale, that money is injecting back into the ecosystem, which is then injecting into the XRP Ledger, which is building, of course, companies, products, services. EZA does a whole launch here at this event, and it was like a Shark Tank. I didn't know what to expect. I walked over there yesterday, 200 guys in there, building on the ledger. I met like 15 people like that, all of which, and I think the winner was an 18-year-old.
Amazing.
That is building on this. So when you hear that, Abs, does that make you feel like, all right, this is going to be the future?
For me, I feel like blockchain right now, we're at a pivotal time when I think we're really moving from the speculation bubble, and I know there's going to be speculators who come in post-Clarity, but we're starting to focus on real products, and that's why these developers are so important. Like a guy like me, I love covering these topics, but those are the real people who make a difference in the space, building those real world products. And you brought up something that I find so important, which is that demand is sustained when it comes to real companies tapping into the ledger. A lot of times we see the demand come in, the narratives go up, and then the prices crash on the back end. If something like G Treasury starts tapping into blockchain products, that demand is going to be sustained for years, and it's going to continue to build.
Well, and the point behind this in terms of innovation, you look at Ethereum and what they've been able to build in a very, I'd say, short time. If you look at about 2017 to where we are right now, not even a decade. Imagine where we are in a decade on the XRP Ledger, especially post-Clarity, whether it comes through this cycle or post, what we're going to see in the midterms. I think the opportunity here in terms of company innovation is really big for Ripple, and of course that is the big play here right now. When you look at the position right now on the Fed, Warsh coming in, the concern that everybody has is that there's not enough votes for them to do a cut. I don't know. I feel like this is a cat and mouse game with Chair Powell currently. If he leaves at some point and Trump can assign another Fed chair, or Fed participant, governor, that may give them the votes they need. And timing-wise, if we ease up in Iran, inflation may still hold, but we're still losing jobs. Maybe that's the data that we need. What do you think?
The Strait of Hormuz situation is very interesting because if you follow the headlines, you'd think we'd won 35 times. And obviously we're still over there battling it out. But every single time oil hits about $120, Trump comes out and makes an announcement. Over this weekend, I don't know if he did it because we've been so busy during this week traveling, the Bitcoin conference, the XRP conference. I did see oil hit $120, but I think that's going to be the major factor here. If Warsh comes in and it's in its current circumstances, I'm not sure they're going to be able to reduce rates. I mean, that's just the logical conclusion, but I'm not sure what your opinion would be on it.
Well, I look at it this way. The thing I think Warsh is really put up against right now is the rising inflation and it continuing to hold. Okay.
Yeah.
But the problem is the Fed has two mandates. Not only is it price stability, it's also jobs.
Job stability, yep.
So jobs are not online with where we need to be, and it continues to decline. If we continue to see the AI push, which whether you believe it or not, the timing is a little bit surreal.
Yeah.
That we're not getting new jobs, but yet AI is now climbing.
Yeah.
Especially in the white collar. So I'm a little concerned if that continues to fly. Now you're dealing with stagflation issue, and at that point, I think the Fed has no point but being able to go in and try to, reset the market. I think there's going to be a cut this year. I might be wrong,
I love that.
but it would only be if there's one caveat, and that is if Powell steps away,
Right.
because we would need that extra vote to give them.
And it's a big caveat
possibility.
because if you listen to him, he seems pretty vindictive right now.
Oh yeah,
he
he
said,
is pouring it
I'm
on,
not,
man.
I'm not leaving. It's like the Leonardo DiCaprio quote in Wolf of Wall Street, right?
love
And
it.
so I think it's an interesting time for that as well, because when you listen to the Jerome Powell situation, I think he's going to do everything he can to make it really difficult.
Yeah.
As much as I wish that wasn't the case, I voted for Trump, I support Trump, I'd love to see them reduce rates. Jerome Powell, that whole lawsuit, remember the $3 billion lawsuit that's going on, so it may be more personal than it is political right now.
Well, I
which is
think it's
unfortunate.
clearly been drawn out that way.
Yeah.
And Powell said it on stage at the FOMC meeting the other day. He said, listen, until I'm fully exonerated, I'm going to continue to do my job here, just
Right.
like I've always done. And I think Trump is now playing a game of chicken with him as to which one is going to, possibly.
Well, we know
blow
one
up.
thing about Trump, he's a winner, right? So in the end, I think Trump hopefully can sustain this battle, and eventually we will see a reduction in rates. And the job crisis is a huge problem. You listen to the numbers, they're often reported and then they're revised a
Yes.
few months later. So
Which is usually worse.
right, much
Yeah,
worse.
yeah.
And so if that continues, then I'm not sure how they can prevent it, but you know more than I do when it comes to these matters. And if you're telling me we're getting a rate cut, I'm going to lean into that.
Not good. There we go. Well, we'll see if that's going to happen.
Right.
All right, guys, you know what to do, of course, covering the XRP Las Vegas event here with Abs and many more. Of course, today's going to be a big lineup. We've got a lot happening here. We'll try to bring more content to you. Be watching the show. Of course, for Good Evening Crypto, you guys are
Yes.
covering the event as well. Anything that
Absolutely.
you're doing today that's special?
Actually, we're going to be doing a bunch of in-person interviews. We're releasing them all next week. So
There you go. All right.
be awesome. Thanks for having me, Paul.
You bet.
As
So,
always.
We will catch you guys later on the XRP Pod. Take care.